Okay, so we learned that when you have x raised to a power, if the power is a fraction, that what that means is that you can rewrite it as a root. Okay? So x to the a over b is the same as x to the a under the root, and b, or the number on the bottom of the fraction, is inside the root, or we call that the index. The index tells you what kind of root it is, whether it's a square root or a cube root. That's the b root. Okay? So in number 1, if I want to rewrite number 1, I write my root, the number on the bottom goes in the root, and then I do x squared. On number 2, you write your root, the number on the bottom is 2, so 2 goes in there, and we have x to the third. On number 3, the number on the bottom of the fraction is 4, and then it's x to the first. So 4, 5, and 6 are going the other way. Okay? So instead of writing them with roots, we're writing them with fractions. Okay, so number 4, we would write x to the 5 over 3 because 3 is on the bottom, so 3 has to go on the bottom of the fraction. Okay. Number 5 would be x to the 7 over 4 because 4 is inside the root, so it goes on the bottom of the fraction. On number 6, we talked about how it's understood that that is a square root of x. So it's understood that there's a 2 inside of there. Okay? And we would make that x to the 1/2. Don't just make it x to the 1 over 1 because that root's understood to be a 2 since it's a square root. Okay? Now, number 7 and 8, you can totally use your calculator. I will show you real quick like I did yesterday. Number 16 to the 1/2 means take the square root of 16 to the first. Well, the square root of 16 is 4. I know that. So this equals 4. And if I put 16 to the 1/2 power in my calculator, I will get 4. So as long as I'm not putting in any x's or y's or anything like that, I can totally put it in the calculator. Number 8. If I tried to rewrite number 8 the way that I rewrote number 7, I could do that. It's the 4th root of 128, but knowing what the 4th root of 128 is, it's not something that I know. Okay? So you could totally just put that in the calculator. Do it right now, 128, and then raise it to the 1/4 power. So 128 to the 1/4 is 3.36. Okay, technically we can't write our answers with decimals, so we could leave it as 4th root of 128. Okay, or technically we would break down the 128 and divide by a whole bunch of 2's. Got 7 of them. We're trying to circle 4 of them. So 2's on the outside, and then there's 3 2's left over, multiplied together to go on the inside. Okay, so the rest of these problems, it's asking me to simplify. Okay, so what you have to do is you have to think about the rules of exponents that we've been doing. Whenever you're multiplying things together, you add the exponents. When you're raising things to powers, you multiply exponents. When you're dividing, you subtract exponents. So on number 9, what's being done? You're multiplying these two things together. Because you're multiplying, what do we do to the exponents? Add them. Okay? Sometimes the adding is going to be easy and sometimes it's not. It depends on if the common denominators are the same. So I want you to get in the habit of putting this in the calculator, okay? You're going to do 3/4 plus 2/4. Alright, so you should get 5/4 when you add that. So it's x to the 5/4, and then that's all you do. Because from 9 to 14, all you're doing is rewriting it as one thing instead of several things. Number 10. On number 10, you're raising something to a power. So what am I going to do to the powers? Multiply. Alright, so multiply 1/2 times 3/2. So you have x to the 3/4. Adding fractions, you have to get common denominators, a little bit more complicated. Multiplying fractions, you just multiply the top and multiply the bottom. Okay. Number 11. So we're dividing on number 11. So what does that mean that we're going to do with the exponents since we're dividing? Subtract. So here, we're going to have to subtract 7/4 minus 4/3. So negative 7/4 minus 4/3. Don't worry about the 2 and the 4 yet. Let's just subtract those exponents. See, you're dividing, so the 2 and the 4 are coefficients. So what do I do with the 2 and the 4? You just divide them like normal. So I get 1/2. And then you get x to the, and I heard negative 37/12. Since it's a negative number, what do you think I do with that? Put it on the bottom. So 1/2 x to the 37/12. So I do these the same way you do all the other exponent problems. It's just that you have fractions to deal with instead of not fractions. Okay? Number 12. First step. Let's do something with that 4 and 2. What am I going to do with 4 and the 2? Divide. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then I'm going to do what with the exponents? Subtract them. So 2 minus 1/2. I think you get 3/2. And it's positive, so it stays on top and doesn't have to go to the bottom. Number 13. 13 is very similar to 10. The difference is that there's a 2 right here in the parentheses. But what you need to remember is that both things in the parentheses go to the third. Okay? So we're going to do 2 to the third and then also x to the 1/2 to the third. Okay? When you do 2 to the third, that means 2 times 2 times 2, which is 8. Okay? And then what am I going to do with the 1/2 and the 3? Multiply, because you're raising it to a power. So 1/2 times 3 is 3/2. So x to the 3/2. So take your time. You totally can do this. Very similar. It's just new kind of exponents. All right, number 14. So 13 we were raising to powers. 14 we are multiplying this together. So what do I do when I multiply things together? 3 times 2 multiplies, right? 6. And then what do I do with the exponents? We have the 2 and the 3/2. We add them because we're combining. We're multiplying, so we add those exponents. So we have 2 plus 3/2. And that should be 7/2.